I work night security at a 24-hour Walmart in a small town in Texas. Most of the time, my job is boring. I walk around the store, check cameras, and make sure no one's stealing or sleeping in the bathroom. But a few months ago, something happened. That still makes me nervous every time I walk past the garden center. It started on a Tuesday night. Around 3 a.m., the store was pretty much empty. Only one cashier was working up front, and a couple of night stalkers were in the back unloading boxes. Was in the security room watching the cameras when I noticed something strange on one of the screens. The garden center door at the far end of the store was open. That shouldn't have been possible. The door locks automatically after midnight, and no one had the keys except for the manager and me. I radioed my coworker, Manny, and asked if anyone had gone outside. He said no. I switched to the camera feed that pointed into the garden center. What I saw made me sit straight up. There was someone or something standing near the rows of empty plant shelves. It looked like a person, but tall. Too tall. Its arms were long and thin, and it had no shirt on. Its skin looked pale and stretched, almost gray. At first, I thought maybe a homeless person had snuck in somehow. It wouldn't be the first time someone tried to sleep out there, but the way it moved, it was slow and twitchy, like every step it took was painful. It bent down toward the floor like it was sniffing something. Then it turned its head slowly toward the camera and smiled. I swear to you, I've never felt that kind of fear from just a camera feed. Its mouth stretched unnaturally wide, way too wide. I ran out of the security room and headed straight to the garden center. I had my flashlight and taser with me. As I got closer, I started to feel this weird pressure in my ears, like when you're deep underwater. The door to the garden center was still open just slightly. I pushed it open and stepped outside. It was cold and quiet. The plants were mostly dead for the season, and the shelves were bare. My flashlight beam swept across the racks, but I didn't see anyone. Then I heard it, a scraping sound metal on concrete. It came from the far corner behind a stack of empty pallets. I slowly walked toward it. "Hello?" I called out. "This area is closed. You need to leave." No response. Just more scraping. As I turned the corner, my light caught something. A hand, not a glove. A long, skinny hand with fingers that didn't look human. The nails were black and sharp, and the skin looked like dried leather. The thing was crouched, down, facing away from me. Its spine was sticking out through its back, and its bones looked like they were pressing against the skin. Then, without turning around, it whispered, "Do you have a key?" My heart nearly stopped. It whispered it again, slower this time. "Do you have a key?" I backed away slowly, keeping my flashlight on it. I was too afraid to run. Then it stood up taller than me by a foot at least and slowly turned to face me. Its face was wrong. The eyes were hollow. The mouth hung open, and the skin looked stretched too tightly over its skull. It started walking toward me. That's when I bolted. I ran back through the door, slammed it shut, and locked it. I radioed the manager, yelling that someone was out in the garden center. She came running with 2 other employees. We checked the feed again this time. The garden center was empty. We went out there together, flashlights ready. But there was no one, just scratch marks on the floor near the pallets. Deep ones, like claws had dragged across the concrete. Searched the area, even walked the fence line. No holes, no broken locks, no footprints. Nothing. After that, we checked the door logs. The system said the garden center door had never opened. Impossible. I know what I saw. Over the next week, a few more things happened. One of the stock guys said he heard someone breathing in the break room when he was alone. Another worker quit after she saw something crawl across the floor near the dog food aisle, and then one night, I found something that shook me to my core. On the floor, just outside the garden center, was a key. A small, old-looking key, not one of ours. It was rusty, with strange letters carved into the side. I picked it up and felt instantly sick. My stomach twisted, and I dropped it without even realizing it. When I looked down again, it was gone. No one believed me. They said I was overtired. But I know the truth. There's something in that garden center, and it's waiting, sometimes. When I walk by late at night, I still hear that whisper. Do you have a key? I've worked at Walmart for almost 5 years, mostly doing overnight stocking. You see a lot of weird stuff working that shift, people walking in half-dressed, random loud arguments, and sometimes even shoplifters hiding in bathroom stalls. But there's one night that still keeps me awake. It happened last winter, just before Christmas. It was freezing outside, and the store was pretty quiet. Only a few customers came in that night. I was working in the frozen food section, restocking bags of veggies and ice cream. It was close to 2:30 a.m., and I remember because the store speakers had just started playing Christmas music again. Jingle bells or something like that. I had just turned into the freezer aisle when I saw a little girl standing there, near the glass doors. She looked about 7 or 8 years old. Long black hair, white nightgown, no shoes. At first, I thought, I was imagining things. I even laughed to myself like, did someone bring their kid here in the middle of the night? But something felt wrong. She wasn't moving. She was staring into one of the freezers, just standing there like a statue. Her face was pale. Her hands were pressed to the glass like she was trying to look at something inside. I slowly walked up and said, "Hey, sweetie, are you lost? Where are your parents?" She didn't answer. Didn't even look at me. I glanced around. The aisle was empty. No adults, no carts, no one else. Just her. That's when I noticed something strange. There were tiny wet footprints on the floor. Behind her, bare feet, and it was freezing. Even with the store's heat, it was cold in that section. No kid should have been walking around barefoot. I tried again. "Are you okay? Do you need help?" She finally turned her head toward me, and I swear, my heart dropped. Her eyes were cloudy, almost white, like she couldn't see. Her mouth was slightly open, and I swear I saw a little frost on her lips. She opened her mouth and whispered, "Too cold." Then she turned around and walked down the aisle's slow, quiet steps. I followed her. I couldn't just let a kid wander off like that, but when I turned the corner, she was gone. I ran toward the next aisle, checked toys, checked home goods, even checked the restroom area. Nothing. I asked my coworker Devin, who was stocking chips nearby, if he saw a little girl walk past. He gave me a weird look and said, "Dude, no, I've been here the whole time. No kid." I felt crazy. Still, I told my manager, and we checked the security cameras later that morning. We watched the freezer aisle at the exact time I saw her, and there I was, on the screen talking to no one, reaching out, looking around, but there was no girl. Just me. I know what you're thinking. Maybe I was tired. Maybe I imagined it. But that's not the end of the story. 2 nights later, I was stalking in the same section when I saw something stuck behind one of the freezer doors. It was a child's handprint on the inside, fogged over in the shape of tiny fingers, like someone had pressed their hand to the glass from inside the freezer. It faded a few seconds later. I called my manager again. We opened the freezer and checked everything. There was nothing unusual inside, just frozen pizzas and waffles. No opening big enough for a person to fit through. But I know what I saw after. That strange things started happening in the store. Cold spots in random aisles. Toys falling off shelves for no reason. One time, a customer told me she heard a little girl laughing near the back storage room, but no one was there. Then one night, a man came in, probably in his 60s. He was quiet, looked around the store, then came up to the customer service desk. He asked if anyone had found a girl's white nightgown in the frozen section. I looked at him carefully. "No, sir," I said. "Why?" He nodded slowly and said, "That's where she died." I felt a chill go down my spine. He explained that about 15 years ago, his granddaughter had gone missing. Her parents left her in the car while they ran into a nearby store. She wandered off, somehow made it into the back of a grocery store and into a walk-in freezer. She froze to death before anyone noticed she was missing. They found her the next morning, curled up inside, barefoot, wearing a white nightgown. He said she loved Christmas music. I didn't know what to say. I told him I thought I had seen her more than once. He just nodded again and said, "She still gets cold sometimes." That was the last time I saw him. Now, every time I walk past that freezer aisle during my shift, I feel a weird pressure in my chest. Sometimes I hear soft footsteps when I'm alone. Sometimes I feel cold air on my neck, even if the freezer door is shut. And once, just once, I saw those same little wet footprints again leading toward the back room. I don't know if she's still there. I don't know what she wants, but I do know one thing. Walmart freezers aren't always empty. I work the night shift at a Walmart. It's quiet most nights, just a few people shopping late, and us workers stocking shelves. Nothing too crazy usually happens. But one night, something happened that I'll never forget. It was just after midnight. I was working at the customer service desk. The store was mostly empty, and everything felt calm. That's when I saw a man walking in from the front doors. Right away, something felt wrong. He looked about 30 or 35 years old. His clothes were baggy, and he walked slowly like he was tired. But what really scared me was that his shirt and hands were covered in blood. Not a little bit, a lot. It was even on his face. He walked straight to my desk and held out some crumpled money and a bill. He said, "I need to return this." I froze. My heart was racing. I didn't know if he was hurt or if he had hurt someone else. He didn't look angry, just empty, like he wasn't all there. I asked him, "Are you okay?" He didn't answer. He just kept holding out the bill. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to make him mad, so I pretended to process the return, even though none of it made sense. Who returns a utility bill to Walmart? While I was stalling, I made eye contact with Sophie, one of my coworkers. She was nearby stocking shampoo. I gave her a look like help. She saw the man and her face went pale. She slowly backed away, probably going to get our manager. The man stood there, dripping blood on the counter. I said, "Let me help you get cleaned up." I offered him some wipes and pointed to the break room bathroom. He didn't say anything, but followed me. That's when Tony, our night manager, showed up. He took one look at the guy and said, "What's going on?" I quickly told him. He came in like this. I think he needs help. Tony stepped forward and asked the man, "Do you need an ambulance?" The man didn't say a word. He just stared at the floor. Tony said, "I'm calling 911. He started pulling out his phone. Then the man looked up at me. His eyes were wide, and he suddenly said something that made my blood run cold. "You lied." I stepped back. "What do you mean?" I asked, but he didn't answer. Suddenly, he turned and ran out of the break room, sprinted down the hallway toward the aisles. Me, Tony, and another coworker, Matt, followed him, but he was fast. We lost sight of him near the fabric section. We split up, looking for him down the aisles. It was quiet. Too quiet. No footsteps. No voices. Just empty store sounds. 5 minutes later, the police and EMTs arrived. We told them everything. They searched the whole store, looked in the bathroom, checked the cameras, even outside. But they didn't find him. He was gone. Here's the weirdest part. When we checked the security cameras, he never showed up. No footage of him entering. No footage at the desk. Nothing. Like he was never there, but we saw him. We heard him. He bled on the counter. We had wipes. I remember the look in his eyes when he said, "You lied." I still work that shift. It's been months now, but sometimes when it gets quiet, I think I see a shadow near the fabric aisle, or I hear footsteps when no one's there. I don't know who he was. I don't know what happened. But one thing I do know is he'll be back. I used to work night shifts as a janitor at Walmart. Most people think cleaning a store at night would be boring, and they're right, for the most part. But there was one shift where I experienced something that made me quit for good. Had happened about a year ago during a Thursday night shift. The store was open, but only a few shoppers were wandering around. It was around 2:45 a.m. I remember, because I was finishing up in aisle 9 where we keep cleaning supplies and paper towels. That aisle always creeped me out a little. The lights flickered sometimes, and the floor always seemed colder than the rest of the store. I was pushing the mop down the middle of the aisle when I heard it a whisper. I stopped. It was soft, like someone was standing right behind me and saying something just under their breath. I turned around fast, expecting to see a customer. No one was there. I looked toward both ends of the aisle. Nothing. I brushed it off, maybe thinking it came from another aisle or was just in my head. I kept mopping. Not even 10 seconds later, I heard it again, but this time it was closer, still whispering, still impossible to understand. It was like words were being spoken in reverse, or underwater. I dropped my mop and walked quickly to the front of the store where my coworker, Josh, was taking his break. I asked, "Hey, is anyone in aisle 9? He shook his head. "No, I just walked by. Didn't see anyone." "Why?" I told him what I heard. He laughed and said, "Maybe aisle 9's haunted." I smiled, but something about the way he said it made my skin crawl. Still, I went back. My shift wasn't over and I had to finish. When I got back to aisle 9, everything looked the same, but my mop was missing. It wasn't where I left it. I looked down the aisle, thinking maybe it rolled off. Nothing. I looked behind the shelves. Nothing. Then I noticed something on the floor near where I'd stopped earlier. A wet footprint, just one. Barefoot. Small. Like a child's. But it was heading toward the back wall, not from it. I backed away. I was done for the night. I told my manager I wasn't feeling well and clocked out early. When I got home, I tried to sleep, but something didn't feel right. Like I hadn't really left the store. The next night, I came in again. I told myself I was just tired, that I'd imagined it all. This time, I brought my earbuds and played music while I worked. I thought if I couldn't hear the weird sounds, I wouldn't get scared. Big mistake. I was back in aisle 9, cleaning again, when I noticed all the items on the shelves looked different. The rows of bleach bottles and spray cans were turned backward. Every label was facing the wall. At first, I thought someone was messing with me. But it wasn't just a few bottles, it was everything on the shelves. Then I saw it again. Another footprint. This time, too, still wet, still barefoot. But now, they were leading out of the aisle, toward the toy section. I followed them, slowly, trying not to freak out. When I reached the end of aisle 9, I heard a voice. Clear this time. It said, "Help." Me. I stopped. It sounded like a child. I turned the corner and looked into the toy aisle. No one was there. But then every toy that made noise lit up at once. Singing dolls, robot dogs, even a light-up basketball hoop. They all went off at the same time for just 2 seconds. Then silence. I ran, not walked. Ran back to the break room. Josh was there again, eating chips. I told him what happened. This time, he didn't laugh. He just looked at me and said, "You heard it too, huh?" I asked, "What do you mean?" He leaned forward and whispered, "That's why no one likes working aisle 9. He said about a year before I was hired, a young boy had gone missing inside the store. His mom reported him missing just before closing. Cameras showed him walking into aisle 9 but never coming out. The cops searched the store all night. Nothing. The store shut down for a full day. Still nothing. Eventually, they ruled it an accident. Said he probably ran off and got picked up somewhere else. But employees kept hearing voices, seeing footprints. One person even claimed they saw a small handprint on the inside of the metal shelf panel. Josh looked at me and said, "Whatever's there, it wants something or someone." That was the last night I worked there. Before I left for good, I went back to aisle 9 one more time just to see. Just to prove to myself I wasn't crazy. I walked slowly down the aisle. It felt colder than before. And then clear as day, I heard it again. "You didn't help me." I turned around and saw the mop I had lost 2 nights earlier, standing, upright in the middle of the aisle. I didn't wait. I walked straight out the door, quit the next morning, and never went back. Now, when I shop at Walmart, I stay far away from aisle 9, because some messes aren't meant to be cleaned. I worked as a night shift manager at a Walmart in northern Illinois. For the most part, the job was normal. Long hours, annoying customers, and the occasional shoplifter. But in February of last year, something happened that I haven't been able to forget. It started on a Friday night. I was in the back office doing paperwork while our security guard, Vince, watched the camera feeds. We had over 40 cameras throughout the store, some in the aisles, some outside, and a few pointed at the storage areas. I was drinking coffee and half listening to Vince mutter to himself when he suddenly said, "Hey, who's that guy in the garden camera?" I looked over at the screen. The camera showed the outdoor garden section, which was closed at night and locked from the inside. But sure enough, there was a man standing in the middle of the garden area. He wasn't moving, just standing there, looking straight up at the camera. I leaned closer. The image was grainy, but the man looked wrong. His arms were too long, and his neck looked stiff, like he couldn't turn his head. He was wearing dark pants and no shirt. Even though it was below freezing outside, Vince grabbed his flashlight and keys and said he was going to check it out. I stayed in the office, watching the screen. He walked to the garden door and unlocked it. The moment the door opened, the man on the screen vanished. I thought maybe he ran off camera, but the way he disappeared, it was like the feed glitched for half a second and he was just gone. I radioed Vince. "Do you see him?" Static. I tried. Again, "Vince, you copy?" Still static. Then, on the screen, I saw Vince standing in the garden area, shining his flashlight around. He looked confused, like he wasn't sure what he was even looking for. He radioed back a minute later. "No. One here. Garden's empty. Probably a camera glitch." I wanted to believe him. He came back and we both watched the footage again. This time, when we played it back, the man wasn't there. We rewound it 3 times. Each time, nothing. The garden section was empty the whole time. Vince just laughed it off and said, "Guess we're seeing things." But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The next night, I was in the office alone. Vince had called in sick. Around 3:15 a.m., I was flipping through the camera feeds, just checking each one out of habit. When I clicked over to camera 14, the one pointed at aisle 5, I saw him again. The same man, standing completely still, facing the shelf of cereal boxes. His arms hung stiff at his sides, and his head was tilted in a weird angle, like it was too heavy for his neck. I froze. Then he moved. Slowly, he turned his head toward the camera toward me. He stared, not blinking. I grabbed the walkie and radioed the 2 overnight stalkers who were working that aisle. I said, "Hey, do you see anyone else near you?" One of them answered, "No, we're the only ones back here." I replied, "Are you near aisle 5? They said, "Yeah, we're standing right in it." I stared at the screen. The man was still there, still watching the camera, but the 2 workers said they didn't see anyone. Then something happened that made my blood run. Cold. The man on the screen, he smiled. It was a slow, unnatural grin that stretched wider than it should have. He started walking not down the aisle, but toward the camera. I felt a sudden pressure in my chest. I backed away from the monitor. Then the screen went black. No static. Just black. The whole monitor system rebooted itself right in front of me. It took about 10 seconds, then came back online. When it did, all the camera feeds were normal. No man, no glitches. I checked every inch of the store. Walked through aisle 5 myself. Nothing. That was the end of it for a few days. Then one night, I got a call from corporate. They wanted us to send over some camera footage from the garden section for a shoplifting case. It was from the night we saw the strange man. I pulled up the files to export the video, but there was something strange about the video list. All the clips from that night had normal titles like CAM14_0300AM or CAM08_020AM. Except one. One file had no name, just a blank line. When I clicked it, it didn't open like normal. Instead, it started playing full screen automatically. The video showed the inside of the office. My office. From the angle of the corner ceiling, we didn't have a camera in that room on the screen. I saw myself sitting in the chair just like I was doing now, but behind me, in the corner of the frame, was him, the man, standing silently behind my chair. I spun around so fast I knocked over my coffee. No one was there. Shut the system down and called my general manager the next morning. I told her everything. She said she believed me. Because I wasn't the first. She told me another manager saw the same man months before me and quit without notice. She said corporate told them not to talk about it. Just a technical error. I quit a week later. I couldn't focus anymore. Every time I looked at a screen, I felt like someone was watching me back. Now I work at a hardware store. No cameras, no long aisles, no overnight shifts, but sometimes late at night, I still see a face in my TV screen or computer monitor. Watching, smiling, waiting. I used to work part-time at Walmart in the clothing section, folding shirts, restocking jeans, helping people find sizes. It was boring, but easy money. But what happened during one of my closing shifts changed how I look at fitting rooms forever. This happened in 2022. I was 19 and just trying to make some extra cash before going to college. I usually worked the evening shift and stayed until the store closed at 11 p.m. One night, I was assigned to clean up the women's dressing rooms after the store closed. Normally, we had a team of 2 do that, but my coworker called out sick. So it was just me. Around 10:40 p.m., I walked over to the fitting room area with my cart and folding board. The whole section was already quiet. The store had maybe 2 or 3 customers left. There are 5 fitting rooms in our Walmart. They're simple, small rooms with mirrors and metal doors that lock from the inside. Customers often leave clothes inside, and sometimes we find hangers, trash, or even food wrappers. I knocked on each door like we were trained to, just in case anyone was still inside. Fitting room check. I called out. The first 4 rooms were empty, but when I got to the 5th door, it was locked. I knocked. No answer. I called out again. Store's closing in 15. Anyone in there? Still nothing. I figured someone had locked it and walked off without telling anyone. It happens a lot. I used my key to open it. What I saw made me stop cold. The room was empty, but the mirror had a handprint on it, a very small, pale handprint. Too small to be an adult's. It looked fresh, like someone had just touched it. I wiped it off with a cloth, shook off the weird feeling, and went back to folding shirts. About 5 minutes later, I heard the door click. The 5th door. The one I had just unlocked. It swung open slowly and then shut again. I stared at it for a moment. It was closed. I hadn't touched it. No one else was nearby. I walked over and pulled on the handle. Locked again. I knocked harder. Hello? This area is closed. No reply. I radioed my manager and asked if anyone had a key to the fitting rooms. She said I was the only one closing that area tonight. I decided to open the door again. This time, I kept 1 foot against the bottom of the door so it couldn't swing closed behind me. The room was colder, like noticeably colder than the rest of the store. And on the mirror, the handprint was back. Only now, there were 2. One of them was much larger. I backed out slowly and shut the door. I was officially creeped out. I told my manager I was feeling sick and asked to clock out early. She let me leave without asking too many questions. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about those handprints, how they came back after I wiped them, how the door locked itself again. The next day, I asked one of the older employees, Miss Carol, if anyone else had weird experiences in the dressing rooms. She looked at me and said quietly, "Room 5? I nodded. She told me something that made my skin crawl. About 5 years ago, a woman had come into the store with her young daughter. They were seen shopping in the clothing section. The woman went into the fitting room while her daughter waited outside. When the woman came back out, her daughter was gone. They searched the store, called security. Even brought in police. The camera footage showed the girl waiting outside the fitting rooms and then disappearing. No one ever saw her leave. No one saw her taken. She just vanished. They searched for days. Nothing. The police eventually ruled it a possible abduction, but the mother swore she never looked away for more than a few seconds. Little girl was never found. Carol leaned in and said, "You're not the first person to hear the door open by itself." I wanted to quit right then and there, but I needed the paycheck, so I kept working. With one rule, never go near room 5 again. A few weeks later, I was folding hoodies near the dressing rooms when I heard crying. A soft, childlike sob. I froze. The store was almost empty. No kids in sight. The crying was coming from behind the locked door of room 5. It was faint, like whoever was crying was far away or behind something. I walked up slowly and placed my ear against the door. The crying stopped. Then, from inside, a whisper, "I can't get out." I stepped back so fast I nearly tripped over a pile of hangers. I didn't open the door. I didn't speak. I just walked away. The next morning I quit. The store didn't ask many questions. I think they already knew. Now, I avoid the clothing section completely when I shop at Walmart. I can't even look at a fitting room door without hearing that whisper in my head. Sometimes I wonder if that little girl is still in there, trapped somehow, lost between the walls or behind the mirror, waiting for someone to help her. But I'm not going back to find out. And if you ever shop at Walmart and feel cold air in the fitting room, don't look in the mirror too long. And never, ever open room 5. This happened when I worked the customer service desk at Walmart during night shifts. We were technically open 24 hours back then, but after midnight, only 1 or 2 employees ran the front desk. I used to think it was the easiest shift in the world. Until the night someone brought in a return that shouldn't have existed. It was around 2:30 a.m., cold and quiet. I was drinking coffee behind the return counter, scrolling through my phone, when a man walked up holding something wrapped in a black trash bag. He was tall, maybe 6'4" wearing a gray hoodie with a hood up. I couldn't see his face clearly, because the lights above the desk had been flickering all week, and his face stayed mostly in the shadow. He said, in a flat voice, "I need to return this." I glanced at the bundle. It was long, maybe 3 feet, and had a weird shape like something stiff was inside the plastic. I asked, "Do you have a receipt?" "No," he replied quickly, "but I bought it here. It's broken." I hesitated. "What is it?" He didn't answer. He just stared at me. Slowly, he slid the trash bag across the counter. I looked at it, then back up at him. His eyes were dark, empty. Against my better judgment, I started peeling back the top of the bag. Inside was a child-sized mannequin, but it didn't look like one from our store. The skin tone was grayish. The eyes were glassy and too realistic. The arms were in a weird bent position, like it had been twisted or frozen mid-dash movement. It looked old, damaged. I laughed nervously and said, "We don't sell mannequins." Man said, "This one's from here. I want to return it." Then he turned and walked away. No receipt. No name. He left the mannequin sitting right there. I radioed my manager and told her someone had dumped something creepy on my counter. She came over, took one look, and said, "That's not from us. Just throw it away." We wrapped it up again and put it in the back trash room. I didn't sleep well that morning, but that was just the beginning. The next night, I was on shift. Again, at around 3 a.m., I took a walk to the back stockroom, where we keep returned and damaged items. I passed by the trash room, and the door was open. Inside, the bag was gone. I figured maybe maintenance had tossed it out, but when I got back to the front desk, the mannequin was there again. This time, it was sitting upright behind the counter. No one had brought it in. Number. One had touched it. It was just there. I stood frozen. The eyes were now looking straight at me. My coworker Mike walked up a few minutes later. I asked him if he'd moved it or brought it back. He looked confused. "No, dude, that thing creeps me out. I thought we trashed it." We called the manager again. She sighed, came over, and this time told us to burn it. She said she didn't care how, just to get it out of the store. I know it sounds extreme, but we were all on edge. Mike and I took it outside behind the building where we kept old pallets and broken shelves. He brought lighter fluid. I lit the match. The thing burned. It smelled horrible, like melted rubber and hair. We watched it for 5 minutes to make sure it was gone. Just a pile of black, sticky ash. Problem solved. Or so we thought. The next night, my last night on that job, I came in around 10:45 p.m. As I walked past the greeting area toward the service desk, I saw something sitting in one of the carts. It was the mannequin, not burned, not melted. Perfectly clean. This time, it was wearing a little red Walmart vest like it was an employee. I backed away. My manager hadn't come in yet. Mike wasn't working that night. I was alone. Then I heard a sound I'll never forget. A voice, high-pitched, childlike, but broken, mechanical. It whispered, "Do you want to return yourself?" The voice came from behind me. I turned fast, no one there. I looked back at the mannequin. It was now standing in the cart, one arm outstretched toward me. That's when I ran. I didn't clock out. I didn't say a word. I just left the building. The next day, I got a call from corporate asking why I hadn't finished my shift. I just said, "I quit." They didn't even argue. It was like they understood. Weeks later, I heard from Mike again. He said that night after I left, all the cameras in the front section went dead for 6 minutes. When they came back on, the cart was empty. The mannequin was never seen again. But some night shift workers still say weird things happen around the return desk, items showing up that no one scanned, carts rolling on their own, and late at night, if you stand near the service counter, sometimes you'll hear a soft voice whisper, "Is there anything you want to return?" I worked as an overnight cleaner at a Walmart in Colorado. You probably don't think cleaning is an exciting job, and you're right. But one night, I found something in the lost and found box that made me wish I'd never taken that job at. All we had this small plastic container behind the customer service counter labeled Lost and Found. Mostly it was filled with stuff like sunglasses, gloves, or sometimes baby shoes. Boring things. Only managers and service desk workers were supposed to go through it. but cleaners passed it all the time during our overnight sweep. That night, I was working the 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. shift. The store was quiet. Lights were dimmed in some sections, and the music over the intercom was playing some slow, jazzy instrumental. At around 2:45 a.m., I stopped to clean near the customer service desk. I leaned down behind the counter to wipe under it when I noticed something. The lost and found box was open. That wasn't normal. It always had a lid on and was kept closed after hours. Curious, I took a quick peek inside. That's when I saw it, lying. Right on top, half covered by an old scarf, was a Polaroid photo. It wasn't like a selfie or a family pic. It was strange. The photo showed a man mid-30s, maybe standing in one of the Walmart aisles. He was looking directly at the camera, like he'd been caught off guard. But the part that made my skin crawl was what was behind him, just barely visible in the background. Was a figure, dark, tall, hunched, with glowing eyes. At first, I thought it was just light glare. But the longer I stared, the more I realized it was something standing behind him. Something not human. I set the photo down and started flipping through. The box. More Polaroids. Maybe 6 or 7 in total. All of them showed different people standing somewhere inside the store. None of them were selfies. None of them looked staged. And in every photo, somewhere in the background, that same figure appeared, closer in each one. I started to get this weird feeling in my stomach, like I wasn't alone. I stood up quickly and looked around. The store was empty, except for a woman standing at the very end of the customer service desk. I hadn't heard her walk up. She had long black hair and was wearing a coat with a hood pulled over her head. Her face was down, almost hidden. She spoke in a soft, scratchy voice. I left something in the lost and found. I nodded, trying to act normal. What was it? She paused, then said, "A picture. A picture of me." I slowly turned back toward the box. There was one more photo I hadn't looked at yet. Stuck to the inside wall of the container, I pulled it out. My heart dropped. The woman in the photo was her. Same coat, same hair, standing in the exact same spot she was in now, but in the photo, she was smiling, and behind her, just inches away, was the same dark figure, now crouched and nearly touching her shoulder. I looked back up. She was gone. I didn't hear footsteps. No door opened. She was just gone. The store was silent again. I put the photo back and quickly shut the lost and found box. I didn't say a word to anyone the rest of the night. The next day, I told my supervisor. What happened? She gave me a weird look and asked, "What box?" I said, "The lost and found box behind customer service." She said, "We don't keep a lost and found back there. Corporate policy. We send all items to a central warehouse now." I insisted. I even walked her over to show her. But when we got there, the box was gone. No one had moved it. There was no record of it. My coworkers all said they'd never seen it before. Later that week, I checked the security footage. Around 2:50 a.m., the exact time, I saw the woman the camera feed cuts out for 3 minutes. When it comes back, there's no one at the desk. No box, nothing. But right before the feed cuts, if you pause at just the right frame, you can see the woman standing there, and someone, or something, crawling out from under the counter behind her. I don't know what it was. I don't know where it went. But every now and then, people still say they find a strange photo in the store. No explanation. No one turns it in. Some even say if you take one of those photos home, you'll see the figure get closer each day. Until one day, it's right behind you. Waiting. Just like it was in every photo. So if you ever find a picture while shopping at Walmart, don't pick it up. Don't look at it. And whatever you do, don't take it home. I used to work overnight stock at Walmart. If you've ever worked the night shift, you know how weird things can get when the store is nearly empty and the lights are buzzing overhead. The silence is unnatural. The air feels heavier, like something's waiting. This story happened about a year ago in 2024. I was new at the time, only my third week. I'd been assigned to stock paper goods and cleaning supplies in aisle 19. It was an ordinary aisle: paper towels, toilet paper, Windex, laundry detergent. But the workers had a nickname for it. They called it the quiet aisle. I didn't get what that meant at first. All the aisles are quiet during night shift, right? But this one was different. It was too quiet. Even when the store music played or forklifts beeped in other aisles, aisle 19 always felt muted, like you were wearing earplugs. You couldn't hear anything once you stepped into it. Not even your own footsteps. My first few shifts in that aisle were uneventful, just weirdly silent. But one night, everything changed. It was around 3:15 a.m. I was working alone, stocking shelves. I was halfway down the aisle when I heard it. A whisper, very faint, like someone was right behind me. It said, "Don't look." I spun around. No one was there. The aisle was empty. I even stepped out and looked down toward pharmacy and snacks. Nothing. I figured it was my imagination or lack of sleep. I went back to stocking. But then, a few minutes later, I heard it again. "Don't look." This time it was closer, right at my ear. And this time, I listened. I didn't turn around. I just froze. The air got cold. I could feel something behind me, like a presence. Like I was standing in front of a mirror I couldn't see, and something was mimicking my movements on the other side. I stood there, holding a pack of toilet paper, trying not to breathe too loud. Then the lights in the aisle flickered once, twice, and then everything went dark. Not the rest of the store, just aisle 19. I backed out slowly. As soon as I stepped into aisle 18, the lights came back on behind me. Everything looked normal, but something had changed. The shelf I just stocked, the one I was halfway done with, all the products were gone, wiped clean, like no one had touched it. I ran to the break room and called my manager, Mr. Blake. I told him I thought someone was messing with me in the aisle. He just gave me a weird look and said, "Just stay out of aisle 19 after 3 a.m. I asked why. He shrugged and said, "That aisle's always been off. Customers complain about it sometimes." One even had a seizure in there last year, said she heard voices before it happened. That should have been enough to scare me off, but I'm stubborn. The next night, I brought my phone with me and decided to record my shift in aisle 19, just for proof. I hit record, placed the phone in my cart, and started stocking shelves again. At 3:10 a.m., the whisper came back, "Don't look." I didn't turn. I kept working. Then I heard a soft dragging sound, like something crawling across the tile floor behind me. I reached for my phone to record, but it wasn't in the cart anymore. It was now on the shelf, pointing at me. Recording. I didn't put it there. Grabbed it and left the aisle without finishing my task. I watched the footage on my break, and what I saw still haunts me. At first, It's just me stalking, nothing weird. But at 3:13 a.m., something crawls into frame behind me. It's hard to describe. It looked like a human, but wrong. Long limbs, skin like it was soaking wet. Its head was too big, like a mask. No face, just a blank, smooth surface. And it was crawling silently on all fours behind me. Then it stops, stands, and tilts its head. Right as I turn around in real life, it disappears from the video. Just vanishes, like it never existed. I showed the video to Mr. Blake. He watched the whole thing, silent. Then he said, "Delete it." I asked him why. He leaned in close and said, "Do you want it to follow you home?" I didn't argue. I deleted the video, and I never worked in aisle 19 again. That was my last week at Walmart, but every now and then, I check Reddit. I search for aisle 19 Walmart just to see if anyone else has experienced it. I found one post. It was from a guy in Texas who said he worked in a different Walmart, but his store didn't have an aisle 19. He said they used to, but it was removed. From the floor plan, he claimed something lived there. Something that didn't like being seen. And if you turn around after hearing the whisper, it follows you. So if you ever shop late at night and find yourself in the paper goods aisle, and it's too quiet, check the aisle number. If it's 19, leave, and whatever you do, don't look. If you work night shift at Walmart, you see all kinds of strange people. Sleepwalkers, drifters, folks who clearly have nowhere else to go. But there was one man who made all the others seem normal. We used to call him the closer, but the truth is he never actually left. This story takes place in 2022. I was an overnight security guard at a 24-hour Walmart in Tennessee. My job was simple: walk the store, check the exits, watch the cameras, and make sure no one was hiding inside after hours. At first, the job was quiet, boring, even. I brought a book or earbuds and made rounds every hour. Nothing ever happened until one night around 3:30 a.m., I noticed something strange. On camera, a man was standing in the furniture section. He wasn't shopping, just standing between two display couches, completely still. At first, I thought he was a mannequin, maybe a new display piece. But when I zoomed in, I saw his eyes blink. He looked like an ordinary guy, late 40s, bald, pale skin, old jacket, no cart, no basket, just standing there, staring straight ahead. I switched to other cameras, and when I came back to the feed, he was gone. No movement, no walking, just disappeared. I figured maybe he stepped into a blind spot. I got up and walked to the furniture section. No one was there. No sign of him at all. The next night, same thing. Around 3:30 a.m., he appeared on camera, this time near the electronics section. Again, just standing still, staring at a blank TV screen. When I blinked, he was gone. At this point, I was starting to think I was seeing things, but then other employees started noticing him too. One of the night stalkers, Jasmine, asked me if we had a new manager. I said no. She said, "Well, some guy keeps showing up at the end of my aisle. He doesn't talk, just stands there, but when I look away, he vanishes." That's when I started to really pay attention. I looked back at old footage, searching for clues, and I found something that made my blood run cold. The same man had been appearing on the cameras for weeks, always between 3:20 and 3:40 a.m., always, in different parts of the store. But here's the part that freaked me out. He was never seen entering or leaving the building. Not once. And in some frames, he appeared in places he physically couldn't have gotten to, like inside a locked stockroom or deep in the freezer aisle with no footprints on the floor. He would just appear. And always, he was looking at the camera. It's like he knew we were watching. One night I decided to test something. Sat in the security room and waited. I kept my eyes locked on the monitors. At exactly 3:28 a.m. The screen flickered, and there he was, standing right outside the security room door. I turned to look and saw nothing, but when I turned back to the monitor, he was closer. Now just inches from the door, staring directly into the lens. I got up slowly, opened the door. No one was there, but I swear I felt something cold brush past me, like air moving in the wrong direction. I called corporate the next day and asked if we could check store records. Maybe someone had died in the building, or an old employee had been using the store to sleep in, but they said there was no record of that man. Showed them the footage. They claimed they couldn't see him. In every clip where he appeared, they saw nothing, just empty aisles. They even accused me of editing the footage. So I stopped asking, but I wasn't the only one affected. 2 other night employees quit without notice. One of them, Sarah, left a note in her locker. All it said was, "He talks to you when you're alone." I kept working, but I stopped walking the floor. I stayed in the office, locked the door, watched the monitors. One night, I dozed off around 3 a.m. I woke up at 3:41. The screens were all black, except one, camera 6. Baby products aisle. And there he was. The man, but this time, he wasn't still. He was waving. Slow. Robotic, like he'd been doing it the entire time I was asleep. I turned off the monitor. That was my last night. I didn't quit officially, I just never went back. Now here's the part I haven't told anyone yet. 2 months later, I visited that Walmart again, just to see if I'd imagined it all. It was a regular evening shift, crowded, busy, music playing. But when I walked past the furniture section, I froze, because sitting there between the 2 couches was the man. Same jacket, same blank stare. Only this time, other shoppers walked right past him, like they couldn't see him at all. One worker even stepped through where he was sitting without noticing, like he wasn't there. Or like he was part of the building. Now, I don't know what he is, a ghost, a glitch, a memory burned into the store. But I do know this. If you're ever shopping late at night and you suddenly feel like someone's watching you, like someone is waiting, check the nearest security camera, because if he's there, he's probably watching you. And once you notice him, he follows you home.